Michael Dermer here with the Black Entrepreneur Initiative, and we're here with Stephen Carter, one of our partners in the initiative. And welcome, Stephen. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Stephen, you and I have talked a little bit about, obviously, the systemic issues that the Black community faces across capital and across markets. And one of the comments that you made in some of our discussions was that, while there's no doubt that these systemic issues exist, we in the Black community can't use it as a crutch, right? And there would be every excuse in the world, or every reason in the world, rather, to use it as a crutch. But as someone who's come up and built their own businesses, can you tell me a little bit about the advice that you would give Black men and women when it comes to striking this balance between a recognition of what the world is, unfortunately, and the fact that there can be a tendency to use it as a crutch when you're coming up?
Yeah, so Michael, and thanks so much for bringing up that question. It's a hard question for our community to look at and to balance. There is the inherent feeling of like, the world's not fair, it's just not right. Why does it have to be this way? Why do I have to work so hard to get ahead and everyone else has it so easy? The reality is that everyone else doesn't have it that easy either, right? I mean, it's everyone has a tough road. No one is, entrepreneurship, we make the comment all the time that if it was easy, everyone would be doing it, right? It's not easy. And so if it wasn't the challenge of being an African-American, it would be some other challenge. So what do we do to get around and not make that as our single crutch, right? I'll give you an example. One of the things that we knew as African-American owners, and we talked about this a little bit before, we didn't really want to put our name face out there, right? Because we didn't want to be touted as being an African-American business. But what we did do, though, is that both my business partner and I are both former military. We're Army veterans. We realized that there is a huge amount of respect and love for military, first responders, police officers, things of that nature. So what we did do was that we touted that we were, a veteran-owned company, right? That we and what happened was that there were some people that could look past the fact that we were African Americans because we were military guys, right? I just
cringe to even hear that, right?
Yeah. So but that's the reality, right? So they were able to look past that. Now, I mean, of course, I'm sure if we asked them, they wouldn't say that.
Right, of course.
But I think that they gave us an opportunity because we were military guys, and they felt like whatever that means to a lot of people. Yeah. So we utilize that. But that's another example of figuring out a way to get around that crutch and what to do differently. And so, a lot of other things that we can do as small business owners, form a protege relationship with a major company, try to get some experience underneath the auspice of the mentorship of another company. You're getting experience that you can put on your resume to say that you've done this kind of business before, even though your name is not on the shining lights as a front major, you're a minor. And you're able to now be able to go after your own contract after you've been able to say that you have that experience. So sometimes
it's almost Stephen, it's almost like, sorry for interrupting, but it's almost like, we have this thing at the Lonely Entrepreneur we call the brutal truth. And the brutal truth is that even though you're the one that, burns your credit cards and kills your relationships and probably drinks too much and doesn't it, if it's not going right, it's your fault. Right. And so, of course, we can say, and we see evidence of it in many, many different examples, that the Black community is at a disadvantage. No one would argue with that. But at the same time, it sounds like you're saying is, doesn't matter, right? Yep. Because at the end of the day, no different than if you looked at going into a market and you had to be creative about getting into that market because you couldn't go the one way in and you couldn't go that way in, right? And you had to go another way, right? It's almost like it's when you think about it, you can go, listen, there's every reason in the world that you could use these disadvantages as a crutch. It would be completely understandable because, like you said, it would be hard. And then there's the big but, which is the big but is that doesn't matter. like if I take responsibility for my own opportunity for success, then I just got to figure out a way. I just have to do it in the context of, you know, like in your case, I mean, I cringe to say this, but in your case, you're like, I'll tell them that I'm military, but I won't tell them that I'm black.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Right? Absolutely. But here's the other thing. And I mean, again, like taking advantage of the fact that you can take every disadvantage and turn it into an advantage. Yeah. There's a bottom line. There's a way to twist everything. When I walk into a room, say I'm going to a conference or a sales show or whatever, and I'm the only black person in the room, which happens, unfortunately, more times than not.
Yeah.
Maybe one of few, you know. Some people may look at that and be intimidated and say, oh my God, I walked into this conference, there's 500 people. I saw myself and two other people over across the room, but the only people of color in the room. And so maybe they shrink and decide, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
My opinion, on the other hand, is that, okay, everybody in the room is going to know who I am because I'm the only one black guy in here.
Right.
So I'm going to use that to my advantage, right? So when I go up and talk to people, they're going to remember who I am. They're going to remember my name. I'm going to do something, but at least I have that edge to say I'm standing out from the pack because I'm the one black guy in the room. And to be honest, as a salesperson or as a company or whatever, you want to stand out. You want to have that one something, turn cartwheels, do something, wear a rainbow shirt, something so that you stand out. So figuring out a way to use that to your advantage is something that we should all be doing as well. So again, I think that there's systemic racism and bias towards, you know, African-American owned businesses. Is that real? Absolutely it is. But it also is something that should motivate us to figure out a way to, and to be honest, our culture, our people have, back from slavery, we've always figured out a way to make it, right? And to be honest, the people that are here, the African Americans that are here today are the, you know, I joke to say we're the strongest of the strong, because to be honest, the weakest ones didn't make it. They didn't survive all of the things that went. So we're the descendants of very, very strong people that had the mental and physical will to make it. So we have that inbred in us, is to be able to make it through and figure out a way. That doesn't mean to be complacent or to say it doesn't exist or just be passive and let it go. But it does also mean to stop making a freaking excuse and figure out how to get it done. This is life. It's tough.
I think it's a great point, because the ability to take a disadvantage and turn it into an advantage, even though it's not always fair. And your point about, you know, being the only black guy in the room and using that as an advantage. If you went to entrepreneurs, black, white, or green, or purple, and said, I'm going to give you a reason to stand out from everybody else in the room, they would pay you $10,000 just to get in the room. Right?
Absolutely.
So anyway, I don't mean to be facetious about it, but I think it's a really good point, is that, you know, crutches can be there, and they're certainly understandable. And some of those weeks that end up Friday night with wanting to drink a bourbon because it's hard, don't get me wrong. But it's a empowering perspective, I think, for the black community to say, listen, you know, while we're wrestling with these bigger issues, you know, how do we figure out how to take responsibility and be creative about kind of working through them? Yeah, great stuff. Thank you, Stephen. Really appreciate it. Great insights.